All right, and then our session outcomes today. Our session outcomes are revolved around Canvas and Zoom, and as well as integrating that group work concept into them. So we hope that our participants will develop online group work norms or expectations for students, create groups and group discussions within Canvas, manage group discussions and participation, choose a method to grade group work, use breakout rooms and Zoom polls in meetings. All right, this is our tentative schedule. Like I said, we're focusing on Canvas and Zoom, and then at the beginning, we'll also be talking about group work expectations. And with that, Mallory, you can jump in at any time. We're kind of sharing this session. So this is our first question for you guys. Have you ever incorporated group work into an online course? So that poll is coming your way right now.
Wow, we're getting some really great feedback. This looks great.
Oh, can you see it too?
Mm-hmm.
Because you're a co-host? Oh,
yep.
That's a new thing to discover. Okay, I'm going to end the polling. We have everybody in, and let me share the results. So we have about 6 people saying yes, 12 people saying no. We really hope that you'll feel even more confident to include the online group work into your online course after this session. All right, Mallory, did you have anything more to say on this? Oh, you're muted.
Sorry. No, this looks great. I'm glad that we have a little bit of everything. Some people who are familiar and some people who are just, have no idea. And yet I feel like we're going to have some really great information for both sides of the spectrum here.
All right. And then I think it's all you for now, Mallory.
Okay. So what I did on this section was some little, suggestions. Again, there's no right or wrong way to do this. And what we're trying to do is just offer some suggestions that you may want to utilize in your Canvas course. So online group is a possibility. And what I've seen a pattern of some really successful versions of online group work is that when it comes out very successfully when you create a clear set of expectations for any group work. We have a tendency to, you don't want to make the mistake of just assuming that the students already know what great group work looks like. Because you have to keep in mind that, especially for the traditional students, that they are so used to doing everything by themselves. They stream their own video. They put on headsets to listen to their own music. They're not used to sharing these experiences with groups of people. I never had a television in my room or my own computer. It was always like the family computer, the one television in the living room. So you really got to think about that. You need to set some clear expectations for what group work is going to look like for these students. And that can be easily included in your syllabus. And then again, you can post this information in the orientation section of your Canvas. What I'm going to cover right now is creating groups in Canvas. And it's a great thing to do. You can pre-assign groups at the beginning of class. And then I'm going to talk about how to track group communication amongst the students. And then creating a rubric to grade group work. And I find that these options are probably the best when it comes to group work in a remote Canvas course. All right, moving on to the next slide. Okay, so expectations for any group work. When you're trying to think of how to write these out, these are some questions that you can ask yourself. How should students communicate within their group? Are you going to have a set expectation for that? How will a student demonstrate their active role in the group? And then how will group work be graded? I think it's really important that students already know ahead of time what their expectations are and how these expectations can be evidence to be shown of these expectations being met. And of course, how will these expectations be graded? So that way the students has a really good, clear picture of what this is going to look like in your course. Going to move on. So for our example of an online group work expectations, we decided to pull the learning outcomes for the Palo Alto College Teamwork rubric. And I'm going to let Amanda come in on this part because she is going to be the one that's kind of more of an expert on this great, amazing resource that's already available to you to use for your Canvas course.
Thanks, Mallory. And I'm going to keep my video off for a little bit. I'm having some internet troubles over here. So we wanted to include our teamwork rubric as an example. If you have not worked with the teamwork rubric before, it gives great guidelines as to how group behavior or expectations can be laid out for students before they start their teamwork activity. So our first criteria is about students making a quality contribution to the team activity. The second criterion is students treat fellow members with respect. And then the last one is the student models personal attributes that contribute to teamwork. And if you look at the different performance level indicators, there's a lot of detail and breakdown to be clear with students as to what those expectations are for each category. Some of you may know that some of you in here are going to be piloting a teamwork survey for me with a teamwork assessment in the fall, and this is our rubric that the students will be using to rate each other. So this is a great tool that's available to you. It's on our assessment website, and it's also going to be linked in this presentation that we'll share with you at the end. Oops. Okay.
All right, thank you. So on this slide right here, what I did was I set up a series of screenshots, and then afterwards, I have a YouTube video that's going to pantomime what these screenshots look like in real time. So here I took a screenshot. I created a fake Canvas shell, and I added a lot of my team members as students because I do not teach, so I wasn't able to show this with a real group of students, but my TLC department was more than willing to play my guinea pigs for this. So here what I did is I opened up this Canvas shell and I clicked on people, and you can see that step being presented with the red arrow. And then I clicked on groups. You want to, let's see, on the next slide. Once I clicked on groups, then this image presented itself, student groups. And it states that when you create groups for students, students have their own options in Canvas. And one of them is that they get to have their own calendar that connects to the group members. They get to have their own discussion boards that they can use amongst group members. And it kind of lists all the tools that are available once a student has been entered into a group. And then after I read that definition, I clicked add group set. So after I did that, this box pops up, and it's going to ask you to name your group, and then it's going to ask, do you want students to be able to sign up for themselves, or do you want to have this be created manually? And I selected create groups manually, and then it's asking, how many students do you want in each group? And what I mean by the group set name, it's kind of like an overall name for this section, this group section. So like if these groups are going to be only used when dealing with projects, then you want to call this project groups. And that's why students know that, oh, this group that I'm in is only for my projects in this class. If you wanted to create a group for like student work, so that way they know that, okay, this is the group that I go to in dealing with student work. And then you can say, I want this student work group to be assigned for any kind of group discussions or any group assignments, for our participation group, any kind of name that you want to come up with. It's going to be one name, and it's going to have, say, participation, then it'll have participation group 1, participation group 2, participation group 3. So that way you get a good idea. It's just one name for all the groups. And then once you've made your decisions, you're going to click save. Now this YouTube video right here is just breaking down that process that was just pantomimed with the screenshots. The purpose of this video is to walk you through the steps you need to take in order to create any groups for your Canvas course. Please keep in mind, in order to do this, your students must already be added into your Canvas course. So first step is I'm going to click on People. And then I'm going to click the Group tab. And then I'm going to click Group Set.
for this example, I want to create a set of groups, and I'm going to call this my teamwork group. And I want the teamwork group to be the group that I select whenever I do any discussions or assignments. And then I'm going to state that I want Canvas to create my groups for me, and I want these to be a group of 3. And I'm not worried if the same number of students are in each group. And I don't really want to assign any kind of leadership roles to my group. So I'm going to click Save. And now I can see that Canvas has created the groups for me. And if I click on each of the teamwork groups, teamwork 1, 2, and 3, I see the list of students that were generated by Canvas. And because I had this set up automatically, any new additional students would automatically be added into these groups. Now, please keep in mind, I kept my group number to just 3 because I have a very small number of students in my Canvas course. So you want to make sure that you select the amount of groups that you want, depending on the size of the student population that's assigned to your Canvas course. So say if I wanted to add another group. So I'm going to click Add a Group Set. I'm going to call this one Project. And then I'm going to ask that Canvas create groups of 3. And again, it's not going to worry me if they don't have the same number of students. I'm not going to add a leadership role to these groups. Then I'm going to click Save. So these are the steps you would need to take if you are assigning groups to your Canvas course.
Okay, so real quick before I continue on, I wanted to take this time. Julie, were there any questions that I'm going to need my attention on this part of the presentation?
First of all, can y'all put the PDF of the presentation in the chat for me? I don't have a copy of that. And then a good conversation starter is the question, you know, is it better to assign members to a group or to allow students to sign up for themselves? And there's lots of ways that can go. And
yeah.
So
and
I wondered if you guys want to talk to that.
I think that's going to be the preference of the teacher. It depends on how well you know your students. If you want to create those groups manually because you know who the leaders or the talkative or the innovative ones, and you're trying to have a nice mix, you can do it manually. If you are making these groups before the start of the semester, then you're not going to have that extra, you know, bit of knowledge to determine how good of a mix this is. And again, having students sign up for that, that might delay the process just simply because, you know, if one student's not checking their Canvas on the regular basis, and then, you know, the group, it might slow you down. I would strongly suggest that, you know, just having it automatically done. But again, it's up to you on what kind of, you know, remote environment that you have and how well you know your students.
Yeah, and you know, Debbie put in the chat that she uses a social styles inventory. Maybe Debbie, you could post it in this chat, or maybe you're going to talk about it in part 2.
Yeah,
yes.
I was actually going to give like a shameless plug here and just say that Debbie's social style inventory is really interesting. And because of the way the Zoom link was created, if you're staying for part 2, you actually don't have to leave. You can just stay in this Zoom. It's the same link.
Okay,
so
cool.
If you want to hang around for part 2, Debbie will be talking about how she groups her students, because that is more of a pedagogical decision.
Yeah, I think it depends on what you're wanting them to do too. You know, if it's just a quick group activity in class, you know, it can be random or they can pick. But if it's something that's more involved, that is a project that goes over time, then maybe you want to be more strategic about placing them in groups. Okay.
And that's why I wanted to show that video of how you can have multiple groups, and one of them can be for, you know, the participation side, where it's just something really quick and easy. And then you can make a separate group where you can be more strategic on your choosing of students in like a project, you know, group. So those are why I wanted to show that you can make multiple groups.
Yeah.
I don't want to
I
break
think that's
in,
it.
but I put my students in groups for the entire semester, and it has increased my retention about 15% because they account for each other rather than me needing to account for them. So.
Oh yes, there are definitely some strong benefits for having groups in your class. One of the things I wanted to also let you guys know, and again, this is mostly from the technology side of it, is that you can create group assignments and discussions in Canvas. And so if you want to take an assignment and you're like, well, how do I make this assignment become a group assignment? This is those little buttons that you would need to click that allow you to connect those pre-made groups to certain assignments in Canvas. So you would follow the normal steps that you would when creating an assignment. And what their availability is, if you see the little screenshot there, there's a section underneath there where it says submission type, and then submission attempts, and then it has group assignment. And what you're going to do is you're going to click, yes, this is a group assignment. And when you do that, you are able to, let's see. Oop, did I skip
Sorry,
something?
do you need me to go back?
Yeah, go back. I don't want to, oh yeah. So once you click that, you can move on to the next one. Once you do that, it's going to ask you, okay, you know, is it going to be, for which group is this going to be for? Is this going to be for your teamwork group, or is this going to be for your project group? And so then you can decide, okay, which one of these groups do I want to assign? Because you could have made multiple groups. And so for this case, I said, oh, I want to assign this to my project group. So now I clicked on project and I posted my instructions for the students. This discussion board is designed for communicating with your group. This discussion board will determine your group's participation grade. If you use a different system / method to communicate, please post screenshots as a threaded reply. So this was a way for me, because some instructors are like wondering, well, if I make groups, is there a way that I can track their communication? So by simply making a discussion post and telling your groups that this discussion post is going to be used for you guys to plan everything out, and this is how I'm going to grade whether or not you're communicating with your group, that could be a great way if you're worried about wanting to track how the students are communicating with each other. Move on to the next slide.
Can I stop you just for a second?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. There's questions about maybe you've grouped some people together, but then, you know, it's not working out and you want to regroup, or you want to increase the number of groups and decrease. So once you have this set, is it easy to adjust it?
Oh yes, once you've made your group and you find that, oh, this isn't working out, you could always go back, click onto people, open up your groups. And if you noticed, Amanda, if you don't mind back clicking a couple of it, let's see, a little bit more.
Maybe like back here?
Oh, keep going. Oh, I didn't do a screenshot of it, I'm sorry. In that YouTube clip, you had saw that all the names were divided out for you, and it had these little like braille dots kind of like on the markings next to everyone's names. So you can like click and drag and maneuver, kind of like you would if you were to like try to move something in your modules. Well, all you would have to do is open up your groups again, and you could see all the names of how it was divided, and you can literally click and drag to change up the group order. And of course, you can go back and you can increase the amount of students or decrease the amount of students in each group so they can readjust that. You don't need to make an entirely new group set. You are able to go back and edit. Okay. Was there another question, Julie, or?
Sorry, I was muted. No, I think we're good. I think that covered a couple questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
Amanda, if you can click the next slide for me then. So this was just a screenshot of an example of tracking a group discussion. So I made these discussion boards for my students. And this is going to be like a screenshot of what it would look like if I were to go in and view the students' discussion boards. So keep in mind, you know, group 1 is talking amongst each other, and group 2 cannot see what's on group 1's discussion board. These are all separate. Group 2 has no idea what's happening in the other groups. Group 3 has no idea what's happening in the other groups. Only the instructor is able to kind of jump between each discussion board to see how things are going. So if I looked at here on my project 2 discussion board, I can see I have one person who's started off the conversation. And that way I'm like, oh, okay, so I can see that they're starting to talk to each other. You go on to the next slide. This right here is a little YouTube video that I created that shows that how-to steps of creating a discussion board to track communication amongst groups.
The purpose of this video is to demonstrate the steps that need to be taken in order to create a discussion board for any group projects in your Canvas course. So I've already created my groups, so now I want to create a discussion board for these groups to communicate on. I'm going to add my discussion, and I'm going to call this discussion board Group Work Discussion/Planning. And for this example, I'm going to call it Discussion/Planning for Group Projects. So here I'm going to lay out instructions for my students to follow. They are going to be told that this discussion board is going to be designed to help facilitate all communication within the group. They will also be told that this discussion board will be used to determine their group participation grade. And of course, if the group members decide to communicate using a different platform, to please post screenshots as a threaded reply, so that way I can still clearly see that everyone was contributing and communicating within the group. I'm then going to select Allow Threaded Replies, and I'm going to say that this is not going to be graded and that this is a group discussion. And I'm going to select my project groups that I created for this particular project. And then I can set a time frame, but for this example, I'm just going to leave it blank. And then I'm going to click Save and Publish. So now when I look at my discussions, I then have the option to select each individual group to see any of the threaded replies they have created within their particular discussion board. So that means Project 1 cannot see what's being posted by Project 3. Project 3 cannot see what Project 2 is posting in their discussion board. Only the instructor will be able to see all of the group's replies within the discussion board that you have created.
So like I said, this little video just kind of reiterated all those screenshots and gave you like a live step-by-step of what that were to look like. We're going to move on to the next slide. And
Valerie, please, do you have to create discussion board for each project team or just one discussion board?
So when you create a discussion board and you click that this is a group discussion, Canvas automatically generates individual discussion boards for each group. So if you created 6 groups, then Canvas generated 6 different discussion boards.
I see. Thank you.
So on the instructor side, all you did was make one discussion board. For Canvas, they generated multiple discussion boards for the groups. You can also use discussion boards as group assignment for an assignment. So for example, I could create a new discussion board and say that, give them an assignment to work on and say, turn this in as a group. And then I could have, I could be like, okay, these are all the post replies I received from other groups. And you can share those out in a discussion board that is now open to all the class. So that's like an idea for a great assignment. You can also do one where you can ask that groups submit the person's role and work responsibility for a project. That could be a great thing too. So they can use that discussion board to hash out who's going to do what should we work on, and you could even have that be a graded assignment where they have to submit the roles of each member of the group. So that those are just some ideas on how you can really utilize group discussions. You want to move on the next slide? Yes.
What about, can you talk about embedded tutors? You know, that's going to be something that's going to be coming up. Well, it's already happening. So do embedded tutors, does that role allow the tutor to see the discussion boards for the groups?
I do not know if the permission roles extend out to be able to view the discussions in the groups. I do know that you cannot add other roles in a group of students. So Canvas only breaks up the students that are labeled as students in a Canvas course. There's no way for you to, like, you know, can I add the TA? Can I add the observer into the group discussion? It won't let you do that. It's only for people who are assigned as student roles. I can look into that question, which was, would, if a role is able to observe a discussion post for an entire class, are they able to view discussion post for student groups? And I will also know that some observers are, you know, assigned to observe a particular student. So I'll have to also look to see if that assigned observer roles also extend to viewing any group participation that assigned student contributes to. So I have to look into that. Those are some
Okay,
really
thank you, Mallory. That's it. Sorry.
No, you're fine. All right, Amanda, we'll move on to the next slide. So for grading group work, I listed different methods to grade group work. And the first one was just playing out how Canvas already has it set up for you. And then I also created another link on creating a rubric to reflect the group work expectations. And I pretty much, for the second link, it's just a how to create a rubric. And I used the teamwork expectations that have already been created by PAC. Now, I'm not going to play the create the rubric because that's more of like a how to make a rubric. And, you know, just for time's sake, we don't really need to play that. But I do want to play how you can use any rubrics that you create in Canvas and how that can be utilized with Canvas's grading process for any group work assignments.
It's the top link, right, Mallory?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay.
For this example, I've already created my groups and I have also created a group assignment. So now I'm going to go in and grade this group assignment. So when I click on my gradebook, I'm going to select the assignment that was created for groups, and then I'm going to select Speed Grader. And here in the corner, you can see that this is titled Teamwork 1, and that it is Group 1 out of 4. And here I can go in and grade as I normally would for any student submission that's posted here. And in this case, it's a paper. And I'm going to grade using a rubric. So I'm going to go in here and put my score. I'm going to click Save. Then I will also go through and do that again for the third group. Now I'm going to click back to Gradebook. And as you can see here, all the students that were within the same group all got the same scores. So my group that had 3 students all got the same score of 91. Now, if for some reason I can say that, you know, a lot of students emailed me and complained that Raleigh didn't do anything for the group, and I can clearly see that he didn't take part in any of the group discussions that I created on Canvas, I can go in and manually change his grade so that way it's different from his fellow group members. But whenever you create a group assignment and you grade that group assignment, only one group member needs to submit the assignment, and when it gets graded, all of the group members would receive the same grade. So the purpose of this video was just to demonstrate how a group assignment is graded in Canvas.
So Julie wanted to know why she got an 85. I'm just glad
I mean,
Raleigh
if
wasn't
you had
here
been
to
in
see
my
that.
group, Julie.
Well, good thing Raleigh isn't here to see that he lost.
I want an A.
Please email me with all requests. So this little YouTube video that I created just kind of pantomimes what it looks like to grade group work. So there's another added benefit of having group work in your Canvas. It's easier when it comes to grades because any grade that you give one group, it pans out individually to all those group members. So another benefit for the instructor is that it's less grading. Yay. And again, that rubric that you saw that I used in utilizing those grades, that was the rubric that I created off of the teamwork. What's the proper name, Amanda?
ILO, Institutional Learning Outcome.
So many acronyms. And this dyslexic person suffers so badly from them. So I just literally copy and pasted all those expectations. And at the end of this presentation, when you receive this PDF, feel free to click on that second video that's listed here, and it's going to give you a step-by-step process in creating a rubric and attaching it to any group assignments for easy grade. So for the next one, I'm going to let Amanda, if you want to explain this third idea on grading group work.
Sure, this is actually just kind of another shameless plug. So we are offering the teamwork assessment in the fall. Normally it would have been business as usual and teamwork would be assessed with communication. But since we're in the remote setting, we understand that not everybody has or feels comfortable having that online group work embedded into their course. But if you do, or if you're going to, and you would like to participate in our assessment process for teamwork, this is an example of a survey that I created. I'm not going to show too much. I will click on it just to give you an idea, but it is essentially still the teamwork rubric that Mallory was referencing. It's very similar to having the rubric built into your Canvas course, but it allows students to rate each other's performance. So students pick their name. We're just going to pretend we're student 1, and then they pick the names of their partners, student 2 and student 4. And now when they go to actually assess themselves on the teamwork rubric, their names have been populated to these questions. So hopefully that would actually be student names. But and this is done in SurveyMonkey, and it was actually fairly simple to set up once I learned the ins and out of using SurveyMonkey. We also allow students to provide a brief explanation of their rating, so that way they're having to justify themselves as well as give someone a rating. So you won't just give someone a 1 and then just say, great job. So it actually gives meaning to those ratings. But I'm going to be talking about this more as the fall semester continues. I just kind of wanted to give a preview, a taste, in case you're interested in participating with me in that fall assessment of teamwork. Mallory,
Okay, let's move on to the next slide.
I think we're going into Zoom now.
And now we are transitioning. I'm going to hand over the mic here for the Enhancing Online Group Learning Using Zoom Tools. Take it away, Amanda.
Thank you. So Zoom is kind of my realm where I'm the most comfortable. Haven't had enough time to play in Canvas, and I'm the type of person that when I get new technology, I push all the buttons because I want to know what they do. So we're going to focus on 2 things in Zoom. We're going to be talking about breakout rooms. What are they? How do I use them? And then we're also going to be talking about polls. How do I set up polls? How do I launch them? Because those can be pretty powerful formative assessment tools. So let's start out with a breakout room. What is it? If you haven't experienced a breakout room yet, a breakout room is where you take a Zoom meeting and you place them into small groups, and the host is the one that sets that up. You can do this anytime during the class. It's not something that has to be set up ahead of time. In fact, it's somewhat more difficult to set it up ahead of time, but you can set it up very easily and quickly while you're in the middle of a meeting with your students. You can create, close, and recreate these breakout rooms at any time during the meeting. Also, what's nice is that as the host, if you're creating these rooms while your students are waiting, they can still be chatting and talking and interacting with you. They'll never see what you're doing behind the scenes to create these breakout rooms. That's only available on your screen. And you can join the breakout rooms at any time while the rooms are open, so you can go and listen to your students' conversations, pop in, see if everyone's on task. All right, so breakout rooms 101. When you're looking at your Zoom toolbar at the bottom of the screen, you might see that there's a little 4-square icon. That's your breakout room button. You can make up to 50 breakout rooms, but probably wouldn't want to. There are 2 ways to choose how you're making your breakout rooms. You can either assign students manually or automatically. Manually is really good for when you have small groups, and you can do that very quickly. Automatically is probably better when you have large groups. But I also have a video similar to how Mallory was showing her how-to videos in Canvas. I'll have a video that shows that you can still change students around in their groups for the breakout rooms, even if you use the automatic setting. This page is actually more for reference. So I'm actually going to skip over it to make sure we have enough time, and just know I'm going to cover this in the video, but I also wanted it written down so you can reference it later on if you, when you're staring at the PDF without us being there. A Zoom tip that I ran into for breakout rooms in terms of a solution to a problem. If you know, when you start your Zoom session, like when you logged into this one, it might have said open meeting in Zoom, or you might have done something differently, but probably it said something like that, or it opened up your Zoom app. If your students join from a browser, and this can be a little complicated to understand, but what that means is they do not have the Zoom app, they do not let it open on their computer. There's actually a button they would have to press, physically press, to go an extra step that says join from browser. But if they do that, they will not be able to be assigned to breakout rooms. But good news, the solution is when you have breakout rooms open, while you have these small groups going on, the main session is still open. So if you have a student that can't be assigned to a breakout room, and it'll be clear to you, it won't have the assign button. But if that happens, leave them in the main session and leave a few more students in the main session with you and create that as like a separate breakout room. I'm going to go ahead and play my video on how we set up and use breakout rooms, and it will go over all of those options that were on the last one of the last slides.
First, let's review how to start breakout rooms. When you go to your toolbar at the bottom of your screen, we're going to click on the icon that looks like 4 squares and is most likely labeled breakout rooms. Once we click on this icon, our first choice is how many rooms do we want to assign the participants into? In other words, how many rooms do you want to divide everyone into? I have 4 participants, so I'm going to divide them into 2 rooms. Then I have a second choice. Do I want to do this automatically or manually? Manually means that I will decide who goes into each room myself. But the good news is if you choose automatically, not only does it randomly assign participants into different rooms, you can still move people around if you feel the need to. And at the bottom, it tells you about how many participants will be in each room. Since we had an even number divided in evenly, we have 2 participants per room. So I'm going to click Create Rooms, and see it tells me who ended up in each room. Now, Gage and Moxie are siblings, and so are Hemingway and Mary Shelley. So it might not be good to keep them in the same room. So I can take Gage and exchange him with Hemingway. And now they're separated. I could also have just chosen to move Gage into breakout room number 1, and then you would see that there's 3 participants in breakout room 1, whereas there's 1 in breakout room 2. I'm going to move him back. Another option that you can do with breakout rooms that's kind of cool is that you can rename the breakout room. So if you needed to rename groups based on names that they've already come up with for a fun project, or if you just wanted to know who you sorted into different rooms, you can rename the rooms here, or you can keep them as breakout room 1 and breakout room 2. The students will see the name of their breakout rooms, so make sure you name it something that you don't mind them seeing as well. You can also delete the breakout room if you've made too many, and it will reassign the participants. Now, before we move on, I want to show you some of the options. We can move all the participants into the breakout rooms automatically, which means they will go there as soon as you hit go. Make sure you've set all your instructions if you choose this option. Second, we can allow participants to return to the main session at any time. I like to keep this checked so that way students can come back and ask me questions if I stay in the main room. Breakout rooms will close automatically after blank minutes. You can choose to set a time frame for your breakout rooms when you want students to be pulled back into the main session. The good news is you can always add time to this if you realize students need more time as they're working in their groups. And that's what this second box is for, notify me when time is up. And there's the countdown after closing the breakout room. You'll let participants know that if you close the breakout room, they'll some sort of warning before it closes so they can wrap up options here. You can also recreate breakout rooms. So let's say you already sent these participants into their breakout rooms, but you have a bigger class size than I have. I only have 4, so it's pretty easy to rearrange. But if I had 30, I might not want to do that myself. But I can recreate the rooms, and again, I can do it manually or automatically, and it will reshuffle everyone. So I'm going to do that right now. When you're ready to go, you click Open All Rooms. Now, after you open the breakout rooms, your participants will either be sent to those rooms automatically, or I didn't check that box, so all of my participants hit join when they were ready. As you see, Mary Shelley hung behind. Maybe she had a question for me, and then when she's ready to, she'll join the breakout room as well. So now, this is what it looks like from the instructor view. Everyone's in a breakout room. You're the only one left behind in this main session. As you can see, my name is the only thing left behind. What's cool now is that you can go join breakout room 1 if you want to join in on their conversations, or you can switch to breakout room 2. Another thing you can do that's a really cool tool for breakout rooms is down here where it says broadcast a message to all. If you click that button, you can send your students a message that will appear in all breakout rooms. Maybe you're telling them, hey, only 10 minutes left, but it'll show up in all of their rooms. If you want to pop in on your students and see how they're doing in the other breakout rooms, all you have to do is hit join. It'll ask you, do you want to join breakout room number 1? And I'm going to select yes. Now I'm in the breakout room number 1 with Mary Shelley and Moxie, and I can see how they're doing. I can also check on their chat and see if they have any questions. If I want to return to my other breakout rooms or go to the main session, I can either click leave room, go back to the main session, or I can click on breakout rooms and leave that way. I can either click leave, or I can go join breakout room number 2. And now that I've visited both breakout rooms and I've checked in with all of my participants, I'll leave the room to go back to the main session. Be careful here that you don't click leave meeting or end meeting for all. It's happened before. When you're ready to end your breakout rooms, all you have to do is click close all rooms. It's giving my participants that 60-second countdown, and then everyone will return back to the rooms and you'll be ready to continue your session as normal.
Okay, I saw the chat explode during that. Are there any questions that I need to answer before we continue, or were they all answered?
A lot of the explosion had to do with the cats.
Oh, good. That was
Oh.
the other hope I was hoping for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But there is an important question. Can I permanently assign breakout rooms for the entire semester?
That's actually an answer that I haven't really been able to get a solid practice on. You can set up breakout rooms in advance. And when you set them up in advance, it's my understanding that they do stay throughout if it's a reoccurring meeting, they should stay that way. But in order to set them up in advance, students have to create a Zoom account or know what their Zoom like they have to actually download the app. They have to make sure they have their login information. It should be their ACEs information, but I know that I worked with Debbie on this at the beginning of the whole switch to Zoom, and I don't know if we ever actually were able to find a good solution to that, unfortunately. But it is really fast to assign people to the breakout rooms. So at least it's not a tedious process.
Debbie says that she did not figure that out. But then there's another question. Jared asked, can we record what's going on in the breakout rooms? Because this would be very useful for grading teamwork.
That's another great question. I think I actually might say it on the next slide. No, but I can address it anyways. So unfortunately, that is the one thing that Zoom doesn't do. So in this slide, I'll just kind of tie it into what we're going to talk about. Breakout room participants have the same standard communication tools as they normally would in a main room: audio, video, and chat. It will also re-enable screen share. So if that's disabled for security purposes in the main room, it will be re-enabled when students move to breakout rooms. Now, Jared, to your question, from what I've read, only the main session is being recorded, but students who are in that, if you have a student leader in each group, they can hit the record button and share that with you. I mean, I know we wish that we could have it in our own hands, but that's what I've read is the best option for recording the breakout room sessions. And then other tools that are new with your breakout rooms. The second tool we kind of mentioned in the video, broadcast the message to all. But the first tool I didn't get to really show, but it's an ask for help button. It'll be a new button on the bottom of the student's toolbar that if they're in a breakout room, they can push it. And if you're, well, no matter where you are, whether you're in a breakout room or you're in the main session, a little box will pop up at the top of your screen that says, hey, breakout room 1 has asked for help. They need it. And it'll have a button, I think, that says join. So that there's a good solution to that too, to help your students. All right, are there any other questions about breakout rooms before we move on to polls?
There's no more in the chat. I don't know if anyone wants to say something out loud.
Okay, well, if you think of something, we still will probably have time for that Q&A at the end, because polls is a little bit simpler than the breakout rooms. There's a few less variables. So polling in Zoom lets the host create single choice and multiple choice polling questions. That's probably the most confusing vocabulary that Zoom could have ever created. All that because all the questions that you can use in Zoom polling have to be multiple choice. There are no open-ended polling questions that you can send to students through Zoom. There's other features you can use in other text software, but not Zoom. So what it means by single choice and multiple choice is it has to do with your answers. Is there a single right answer or is there a multiple right answer? That's all that means, and I think it's the weirdest word choice possible, but at least we're informed moving forward. You can create and launch polls, share results to participants like I did earlier, and you can download a report of the results later. And what's really cool about the Zoom polls is if you notice when you took the poll yourself and I shared the results, those poll results are anonymous in the class. You cannot see who of your classmates is answering what. So if you're trying to get a good pulse on your class and seeing check for understanding, that's such a no pressure situation. They will never see other people's results. When you download the results, however, as the host, if the student has their name attached to their Zoom profile, like all of us do here, and most likely your students will, you can check later how your students responded to each question. So it's only available to you. Now, a pro tip for Zoom polls, you can set them up on the fly. It's not fun, and it takes a little bit longer than you probably expect, but polls can be set up ahead of time. It's a great tip for to make your classes run smoothly. I've had to set up a poll in the middle of a Zoom session, and it really throws you off with how many questions it asks you to get that poll out there. So my first video is actually, how do you set up the Zoom polls ahead of time?
In order to create Zoom polls, we actually have to do so from the alamo.zoom.us website. Once you're here, sign in with your ACES credentials, and you'll be taken to your Zoom profile page. On the left-hand navigation bar, we're going to click on the word Meetings. This is where we'll set up our Zoom polls. Click on the particular meeting that you would like to set up a poll in, and scroll down to the very bottom. And inside this gray outline box, it'll either show you the polls you've created, or like right now, it says I haven't created any polls. So I'm going to click Add. Your first option is to add a title. This really helps you organize your polls. If you don't add a title, they'll be generically called Poll 1, Poll 2, Poll 3. Imagine if you have 12 different classes and you're on Poll 12, you might not remember which poll you actually intend to use in that class setting. So I like adding a little bit of information, maybe a topic or a date or a specific class section. The next option is about anonymity. Now, to be clear, the Zoom polls that are displayed to the actual students in a class or during a meeting, they are all anonymous in that meeting. This only refers to if when you pull a report after the meeting as the host, as the instructor, do you want student names to show up with their answers? This could be a very powerful tool if you're trying to check in with your students' understanding and see who's understanding the material versus who's not. So I prefer to leave this unchecked. Now we can type in our first question. See, we have 255 character space here. I have a pre-made question, and then I have to select whether I think this should be a single choice or a multiple choice question. This is a little confusing, but it actually refers to the answer choices. Is there a single answer that's correct, or are there multiple answers that are correct? Kind of like check boxes. So I'm going to keep it as a single choice question, and that means there's only one correct answer. Now notice that my answer fields actually have a lot of space too, 255 characters for this as well, so you can type really long answers here. I'm just choosing not to right now. And you can have up to 10. Now if I'm not happy with my question, I can delete and start again, or I can add a question, or I can be done and hit save. Since this is a warm-up, I'm going to add another question here. And I'm going to choose this to be a multiple choice question because maybe I'm writing these answer choices in different formats. And so that means there could be multiple correct answers. Again, you have the 10 answer choice options, and now I'm going to say I'm done with my warm-up polls and I'm going to save. If I look at the bottom of my meeting screen now, it says I have one poll created. It tells me the name of my poll. And there's only one, even though I entered in 2 questions. If I hit the drop-down arrow, I can see the 2 questions that I created. I can edit them if I would like, and I can also delete them if I'm not happy with these questions. Or if I'm worried that my Zoom meeting will become too cluttered, I can delete them after I use them. I also have the option to add more questions if I'm trying to set up more polls for that particular class session, or maybe for the future, just to have them ready to go.
Okay. Yeah, Julie, I see your comment. Yes, I taught math, so that needed to be a math question. Okay, so that's walking us through how we set up the polls and how we create them. The next thing I'm going to go over is how you actually launch them in your meeting setting.
Let's go over how to launch and share results for Zoom polls. On the bottom toolbar, you'll see the word polls, and when I click on it, it brings up this window. At the top left, you'll see the title of my poll, if I put one. If not, it'll just say polling 1. This drop-down arrow, when clicked, will bring up all of my poll options if I've created others, which is why the titles sometimes help, so that way I can kind of keep those straight in my mind, which poll I want to use and when. Then there's also this edit button in the top right. I would avoid using that in real time if possible because it takes you back to the Zoom web page and it can be a little cumbersome to navigate between the web page and your Zoom meeting in real time when you have participants in the meeting. We also see the questions I had typed up from the last video. At the very bottom, in blue, it says launch polling. So when I'm ready, I'm going to go ahead and click that. And what's cool about Zoom is that they make it very clear to see whether or not students or participants can see the polls or what's on their screen at that moment. So when you see this green, that means that your participants are seeing the poll. And it also says in green, attendees are now viewing the questions. You have a timer in the top right-hand corner, and underneath that it tells you how many people have voted versus how many are in your meeting. You'll also see these little bars right here. They'll start to turn blue and change almost like a bar graph in real time as participants are answering the questions. You'll start to see the percentages change as well, how many people are selecting that particular answer. Same with the second question. When you're ready or you feel enough time has elapsed or enough people have voted on the correct answer, you can end polling. At this point, you'll notice that the top bar has turned black. Polling is closed and nobody can view the questions anymore. The host is the only one seeing the screen. So you're the only person that will see the percentages of what participants have picked for these questions. So at this point, you have an option. You can either relaunch the polls and have everyone try again, or you can actually share the results. And again, it turns green to show that I'm sharing with the attendees and everyone can see this. And what's nice about this from a pedagogical standpoint is that Zoom doesn't pick a correct answer. You might be able to tell by the bar graphs if most students are picking the correct answer, but in general, it doesn't show them which one is right. So it gives an opportunity to have a discussion if, for example, you see several of the students, like maybe 50% or more, are choosing the first answer versus the correct answer, which is the last answer. So it gives an opportunity for talking points. When you're ready, you can stop sharing results, and then you can exit out of this screen if you're done with the polls, or as I stated before, if you want to relaunch and allow students a chance to try these questions again, we can hit relaunch. It'll just quickly ask you if you don't mind that it clears the existing poll results. You'll hit continue, and the screen will look the same as it did before. So when you're ready, you can exit out of this and move on with your lesson.
One thing I always forget until I actually make the poll is if you did like I did in this video and you put 2 questions with 1 poll, those 2 questions are being sent at the same time. I forget that sometimes. So if you want to stagger your questions, you got to keep creating multiple polls, which can seem a little tedious, but that's a good option unless you want everybody to get all the questions at once.
Well, if Amanda froze a little bit, what I can do is I can kind of ask right now, were there any questions about the video that we just played about launching polls?
There are none in the chat. We're happy that the cats won't be texting during class, so the cats will be behaving.
Oh,
I don't know if anybody wants to unmute and ask any questions about polls.
Can you hear me again too?
yes,
you.
Amanda,
Yeah.
we can hear you.
You froze.
Yeah.
Interesting bit of information on the cats. Moxie and Gage are Amanda's cats, and Mary Shelley and Hemingway are my cats. So just so you know, there's not 4 cats in one household.
You left my cats out.
Well, I didn't know. Okay, wait, I see 2 questions in the chat.
Yes.
Rochelle, you said, is there anything extra you need to do to receive the report of the poll results? That is a great question. There is a section on the left-hand side of your Zoom profile screen that is, I think it's at the very bottom, that says reports. And that's where you're going to have to go to download the poll results, from what I understand. I haven't used polls enough in Zoom that I needed to download a report that I'm not as confident in that answer, but I know you can find it there. And then Debbie, if I make a question for one section, can I find it again for the next section? You mean like you have your different course sections like set up in Zoom?
Yes, I have them. I have 4 sections of the same thing. Do I have to make it 4 times?
Not if it's the same Zoom meeting. Right? The Zoom meeting link?
Not if it's the same Zoom meeting link, but are they the same Zoom meeting link, Debbie?
No, they're not. I mean,
Okay.
they're on different days at different times.
Yeah, I think, let me double check on that answer and I'll email you. I tentatively want to say, yes, you're going to have to retype it, which is why what I did for this session when I knew I was recording myself, I had all my questions typed up in a Word doc, so that way I could just copy and paste. I mean, I know it's not ideal, but at least it makes it a little bit easier than having to retype everything.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? All right, well, just to kind of close up so we can start getting ready for our panel and our part 2 if you're staying behind. Here's my information and Mallory's. Mallory also has this great feature where you can actually book a one-on-one appointment with her, and this is the link to do so. I put the PDF of the presentation in the chat earlier. I can repost it again if we want right now, but that's a great way to get in touch with her. I think that's awesome. And then of course her email and phone number, same for me. And then last but not least, just thank you. Thanks for coming, and we hope that you feel encouraged and supported to try using some of these tools in your class setting.